Hello everyone, MastersYum1001 here, and with this video, let us move on to the next piston. So I'm going to go ahead and split the view, and we'll turn this into an image editor, and we'll drag open our piston. And this one is an electric piston that works a little bit differently than the one previously discussed. And this area is the area that we'll start out discussing because it is the most daunting. However, when you break it down to its most basic shapes, it really is not that bad. So really all I see it as being is a plane, a little bit more to it than that. Let's press Alt X and split it with bisect mod. We'll just grab a vert and roll it. Let's also make sure that screen share keys are on, so that way, not screen share keys, but key press. And let's just grab this point and get back to work. And we're going to let subdivision handle a little bit of the heavy lifting for us, so we don't need to put a substantial amount of vertices. Usually I like to keep things low until the going starts getting tough. A big mistake is definitely getting in and making things too complicated off the bat. For this area, we see that this is where it gets rounded, and there's actually a dip, and it looks more like a sphere. So let's just Shift S, snap our cursor, and we'll just bring in a circle. Let's lower the radius, and I'm going to go with something like 12, just because I'm not trying to kill myself today. Let's keep things reasonable. And it looks like it's on the level, so if you're familiar with my modeling style by now, I kind of work by checkpoints where I aim to just create areas that look familiar, and then from there we can expand upon them. So I'm trying to move this over, yet it's not snapping precisely to this vertice, and I'm pretty sure it is closest that I'm supposed to use. Let's try active, and that will give us the desired result. So I'm not sure what happened there. I'm sure someone in the comments will tell me that I was wrong. So let's go ahead and delete all of these points. Maybe not that point. Let's not be drastic here. We can press M, merge it last. We just grab from here to here, press F, and I think that's actually close enough at this time for what we're trying to do. However, I do ponder if this vert is absolutely needed. So let's reduce it. I'm going to slide this here, which will dissolve that, and we'll slide here, and let's just grab all of this, bring it down to fit this area. And now I know I definitely need to set it back to closest, because closest is what I'm always using. I don't know what's going on here, but it's like a prank or something. It's just a prank, bro. So GX, just trying to get it to snap, and it looks like it's already lined up. I'm just being over obsessive. It happens. And so we'll just grab this point, roll out about 3 bevels from it using Control-Shift-B to bevel just that point. Let's also grab these two and press F just to make that a solid face. And this is our shape so far. So, really just laying in the landmarks very quickly to get things done. And also, for this piece to work out successfully, it's probably going to need to undergo a subdivision conversion process. So I pressed Q, and I added a solidification to the mesh. However, let's call this what it is, which is piston. And it's no longer in the topo studies, so I guess we're on piston 004 at this point. Congratulations. So I'm going to Shift A, add another plane, and I'm just thinking about this area. There's a lot of ways we could approach it, and I know that what I'm about to do isn't entirely accurate, but you got to draw a line somewhere, guys, when it comes to how accurate you want to be. Be my guest if you want to be 100% accurate and try to use Blender as a CAD application, but I can only continue to reassure people that that is definitely not what we set out to be. In fact, I'm on the run from CAD, in all honesty. CAD's looking for me, and I don't want to get involved. So let's press Q, just do a difference. However, we don't need to use it exact at this time. We could use fast. No need to use exact when it's unnecessary. And I see that this area has a bit of a termination, so let's try to add that in. We'll just add these points, grab this, and scale it. And that's pretty much what I'm seeing in this. We could play with this one as a lever to see how much width we're giving it. You notice how in top view we can't see, you know, what's the proper English term? Jack shit. We can't see anything. So if we press Alt V and we hit EVHQ, we can at least see what's going on thanks to shadows and cavities. And for that reason, that's why we deal with shadows and cavities. Let's Shift A, add a cylinder. We're sticking with these 12 round babies today. You know, no need to kill ourselves, like I said. You know, you can kill yourselves if you want to. Give yourselves a couple of 32 round hard hitters upside the head. You know, not me, not today. So here is what we're looking at so far, and so we're really basic with this. I mean, I'm just being random and just having fun. All of these shapes that I'm cutting in are just to establish landmarks, and we can move them around and have some fun with it, but we're definitely going to need to move our mirror all the way up to the top. And to deal with this, I'm going to add a new modifier. So I just pressed Alt X and then pressed A to change to add modifier. And this means that whenever I click this side, we're going to add a new modifier on the end that's going to actually be the way that we need it. And it looks like we need to have it inserted collapse. I mean, I'm incredibly OCD whenever it comes to these tools. You probably wonder why we're always working on them. It's because my obsession is never ending. And, you know, as long as people keep picking it up, the funding will result in me getting it to the absolute perfectionist level that has never ever been talked about in the realm of add-ons before, which is my overall dream. So let's Shift A and we're going to add a plane. And, you know, I'm just thinking out loud how we can do this. You know, first let's try letting subdivision be our boy. You know, subdivision can be a good boy. You know, I'm so hard on it talking about, you know, I spent a whole month talking about how I just override sub D because I don't trust it, but, you know, sub D is not so bad. Just kidding. Sub D is, you know, I could give a rant about why you should never use subdivision, but it's not worth it. My goal isn't to convince users of anything. It's literally just to, you know, get you in the mood ready to make some art. Like, that's literally it. It's not to say, hey, use this program, don't use this program. You know, your opinions are your opinions. So let's press E, and we're just scaling this out, just building this thing, just having some fun, you know, trying to keep things light. But, you know, with the hotkeys displaying in the corner, there is no need really to just be talking about these individual keys because they're so insignificant. They're being displayed on the screen. If you have a question about a key, you know, let's talk about it. But if it's displayed on screen at that time and you ask about it, I'm just going to give you a screenshot of the key on screen at that time because the key is the key. I'm going to collapse this in like so, just so we get something like that. And let's bring it over to the other side. And this is a really rough solution, but, you know, when the day gets late, I get really practical. You know, just start solving things with hammers. Just like I was talking about in the last video. You know, that's the plan B. Plan A is negotiation. Plan B, hammer time. Not really. I'm like an advocate for electronics abuse, so, you know, don't be abusing your electronics with hammers, please. And if you do, don't be telling me about it because I will get immensely offended. Like, look at you, just, you think you just punch a TV because TV ain't gonna do nothing? I hope you were punching out a CRT, buddy. So you hear that loud whoosh of the CRT exploding. That'll put the fear of God in you. You know, you'll regret that decision. So we're just having fun with Boxcutter, just being random. Of course, we're cutting very low. I'm setting my circle to 12 because, like I said, I'm not trying to be solving all day. We want to get past this daunting part. Jesus, this thing has threads in it. Just everything has threads. Just dang it. I'm just haunted by threads, you guys. Just me and threads. You know, I look at these refs and I don't even see the threads until we start modeling. And then it's like, oh man, threads again. You know, Machine made a tool, and Machine Tools that excels at making threads, but, you know, I just can't use Machine Tools. As strange as it sounds, it's literally because of the vanilla experience. Like, I'm very in tune with vanilla, I just really need to see what Blender does with the vanilla experience, because that's the out-of-box experience. Personally, I mean, it's only because of me as the person that I am. Not anything against the tool, seriously. But I just have to know how the vanilla experience out of the box is at all times. Because that's what everybody's walking into, is that out-of-the-box experience. And so, you know, I refer to that as Tan's vision. You know, I gotta see what they're putting down. And so I think we did all right, but not all right, you know. So we could get this all right, you know, really just have it all right, you know what I'm saying? So let's just get it all right. Just I'm losing it. You can tell I've been at the computer too long, but there is no vacation for me. Like, seriously. And, you know, what would I do? I actually beat Ghost of Tsushima. It was the best game ever made, by the way. So, that's my review. I was thinking about actually doing a samurai helmet and just talk about the game the whole time, and, like, the Mongol invasion and things like that, but I might do it. I'm telling you, just so much content is affected by viewer reception. You know, I gotta make sure it's perfect, or else I'll never hear the end of it. So this is our shape so far. Let's just save it, and I'm going to Shift A and then apply these instances, and let's just Shift H to hide everything that isn't this piece. And let's talk about making this a subdivision friendly mesh. You know, how long do you think it'll take? We're 11 minutes into this video. I'm going to talk until the 12th minute begins. Actually, I made a mistake. Let's undo. Let's remirror that. And 12th minute, let's go. And, you know, I'm not going to stop talking. I'm a demon. You know, I'll never stop talking. But we're just going to select and press Control B and roll the wheel. And this is our general bevel, right? But we want to press P and sully the bevel by setting its profile to be at 1 by pressing P and then pressing A to go back to adjusting it. And now we basically have a subdivision bevel for the duration of this. So that is the technique that I use for that. Not anything special, just my approach to using the bevel as a way to space geometry. So I think it's the way that bevel is made, because there's not that many bugs with it. So I'm pretty sure that, you know, when it was made, it was that. I'm not talking about some mystical technique that's great or something that is unknown. These are things that, me personally, I just extrapolated from reading the manual. It's like, huh, this is what this is for. Like, I mean, I'm obsessed with finding the underlying extra purposes of all of Blender's tools, because I feel like every tool in Blender, you know, hooks, simple to form, all those things just have extra purposes that are just never talked about, that are just undiscovered. And that's why Blender has had only so many modifiers over the last years, is because, you know, maybe a true Blender OG at a level higher than I've ever known or met or understood is able to just take those tools and just make it happen. I mean, I imagine you could take the wedge modifier, or not wedge, take the waves modifier and put it on an ocean simulator and just start getting crazy. Like, you know, I bet the BF, when they party with Blender, they literally will just start cranking out ocean procedurally using just the modifiers in ways that we don't understand. So, you know, when people ask me about learning Blender and understanding it more, I mean, the best advice I can give you is, you know, first of all, look at the files of the foundation themselves, because that's the only way to know how to properly use Blender. It's something I talk about a lot internally, but, you know, I see them using a lot of like linked instancing and things like that. Just it gives a lot of insight to the way that they work and intend to work. And also, this shape on the outside is just not going to be round enough. It's going to get complicated, and we've made mistakes that we're just now recognizing. So what can we do? Can we go back and just undo this and just get serious and reapproach it? A little late for that. I've already put in, like, I don't know, 60 keystrokes into this, so I'm not going to go back. You know, like Naruto would say, I can only go forward, even if it's Sasuke and he's beating the tar out of me. You know, stabbing me with Chidoris and throwing me off waterfalls and making Sakura cry. Fighting Rakages, you know, that typical Sasuke stuff. So we are just going to press Control B, bevel this to here, and I'm just making rapid decisions with this. You know, we started from the 12th minute of this video, and we're just going to see how long it takes this guy being me, to convert this into a subdivision capable mesh, because, you know, with practice, these sort of things get faster. And like I said, whenever I have to do this, like in terms of a job, oh man, demon, I will just whip my way through it, because, you know, my goal is to be done. You know, I definitely am not looking for forever jobs. Those are like the curse to me, to be stuck on the same task day in, day out, forever and ever. It's definitely something that I seek to avoid. And also, we chose to sacrifice to the wrong one, but that'd just be life. I'm thinking about dissolving some of these edges. Like, I'm thinking about getting rid of that edge. I know, really drastic decision, but we could just get rid of that, and that would simplify what we're dealing with on the outside. But I'm thinking that we could probably be more ingenious. Like, I'm already thinking of a couple of solutions in my head that involve some open brain mesh surgery, but let's try to not do any techniques that are unable to be explained properly in this video. You know, we're just having some fun. You know, we're just jumping all around. You know, you probably look at me do this and you're like, man, why don't this guy just focus on one area? But, you know, as I bring in all these areas to their, you know, next level, they all meet up, and they meet up beautifully. Always. Sometimes they will meet up terribly. In fact, in this case, I'm approaching it with all the confidence in the world, but really, we have made terrible mistakes, and we're going to pay for them. But, you know, that be life. Like, I do a lot of experimentation in mistake mitigation, because, you know, mistakes happen. I'm just curious on how you can get around them. And something is limiting this. What's limiting this? Let's bring that back. Press C to push it a little further. You know, we want a little bit of a ring around that. And of course, in music, I'm still over here listening to, I forgot this girl's name. I forgot the name of the band I'm listening to. I think it was Flake? No. That can't be it. No, it's not Flunk. I do love Flunk, though. Now I have to find out. Feist. Of course I'm not going to remember Feist. How often does someone say the word Feist? I don't even know if people use it in a singular. I'm going to have to check that out. I mean, not saying I'm an English master or anything. I'm kind of obsessed with English. You know, fun story, like when I was in school, I was convinced, I mean, I was told by teachers that, you know, if I didn't learn proper English, I would be speaking, you know, basically the enslaved version of English, like the form that's talked by people who are, what's the right way to put it, subjugated by the system. You know, the proletariat has a specific way of talking, and you know, knowing proper English is the only way to avoid sounding like that, you know, and saying in terms of like slang. Like, I use slang as a joke, but you definitely want to not write in terms of slang. You want to be able to eloquently express yourself on paper, you know, is a crucial skill, or at least that's what I was taught when I was in school, like elementary school. And so it's given me a healthy obsession with the English language and how to use it effectively, because otherwise you'll find yourself talking in a way that doesn't get things done. You know, if that makes any sense. You know, like you could walk into an office and be like, I would like to do this. But if you go in and you use the correct terminology to let people know that you're, you know, learned, then more doors open. And that's always been my approach for success is, you know, at least talk and look the part. You know, I can't be talking like a buffoon. However, it is like a family curse. You know, I got a ton of people who just refuse to use that good English. You know, they call me nerdy. They're like, you know, shut up, nerd. I'm like, come on, I'm just expressing my point using proper English. I mean, in reality, you don't even have to swear. Swearing is just an expression of exclamation, you know. So really, you could be so much more coarse with words that don't involve swearing. You know, swearing is almost like a giving up of the arguments, letting emotion dominate. But you know, you start hitting people with some words that they have to ponder for a second, you know, real fast. You know, they think you're putting a curse on them. It's like, no, I'm not African, man, but I am very furious, and I might be coming for your head. But let us continue. You know, we're just talking about just English, but yeah, when I was in school, they really instilled in me, and I was going to like a public school, so I should probably go see that public school someday to thank them, because it's definitely come in handy in life, being able to express myself adequately. But swearing is also fun. You know, swearing is so expressive, so sometimes it's handy in a sentence for just putting emphasis on a thing. You know, you could hit it with an adjective, you know, but you hit it with a swear word and it's almost as good as like 20 adjectives. So it's really about tactful placement whenever it comes to cursing, but you definitely don't want to let it dominate your speech, because it's an oversimplification. You don't want to simplify your simplifications over and over like we're doing with this geometry. You want to have a degree of understanding being conveyed in your sentences, and you know, when you're cussing too much, that stuff's all lost. But you know, we're totally off topic, but what am I going to say? Hey guys, I jade this, you know, hey, I'm jaying it, y'all. Just kidding. That's like an inside joke now. Just, hey man, I pressed G. Oh, how you feel about that? But all this geometry, you're probably looking at me make this just mess, and it's because, you know, what we're looking at is flatties. Flatties don't matter. They just don't. And you know, the more work I do in front of y'all, the more you'll see that flatties, meh. I mean, sure, save the flatties, sure, but also meh on the flat. You know, merging it there is going to just look so icky. I'm just telling you now. You know, I can see my own future. But what's man, you know, got stumbled on a few sentences there. But you know, whenever it comes to subdivision, simplicity is just as dangerous as allowing it to just have its way with your mesh. So we are going to let simplicity have its way, and as long as we're aware of it, it's going to work out for us. But if we were just, this is not game topology. I just gotta say that when we're solving for subdivision, when we're reinforcing loops, guys, not subdivision, not game topology. You know, game engines can't subdivide. I mean, maybe they are, and I just don't know, you know, but I haven't heard about game engine subdividing. I've heard of them tessellating and triangulating, and I'm playing PS1, and believe me, they're reminding me of the triangulation, but I never heard of, you know, just Catmull Clark subdivision, which is the game that we play when we're in Blender dealing with smoothing our meshes. Like, I approach subdivision more as like a smoothing algorithm that I'm negotiating with. Not so much even a permanent system. Just, this song's a 1 star. They try to sneak that one up on me. I'm telling you though, Feist, she's got some bangers. You know, not talking about like anything sexual. Just saying, this girl is destroying guitars, dude. Like probably setting them on fire every show and just tossing them to the side. That's how hard she's rocking on some of these jams. I can't stop listening to her. You know, like there's this band Tops that I'm just crazy about. You know, one time I had to hide from the police, and so I went into a library and the band Tops was playing. Man, it was the greatest moment I ever walked into, let me tell you. Like, I waited until the end of the show. I was like, who are you? And why are you playing in a library? After that, they became so famous. I never saw that band in a library ever again. But for some reason, they were just playing in some random library. But man, there's some chicks out there, and they're just destroying guitars. That's the only way I can put it, just in a good way. That's the only way you can destroy a guitar. I mean, they're not slamming them on stage like Jeff Jarrett or anything, but man, working at mic, working at guitar, I'm telling you, money. But, you know, these are some real sad ballads. I'll just be talking through these videos to you guys, listening to the saddest alternative music ever. That's like my quest. I look for the most depressing alternative. Like, that's why I love Interpol so much, because Interpol is just, man, they just know, you know, life is a struggle. And, you know, it's a random topic to get to in blending, but all pain, you gotta just blend through it. You know, you could panic about it forever, you could stress over this and that, but I mean, Blender itself is the only safe stress reliever. You know, I probably sound so heartless when I'm like, yo, you gotta blend away the pain. You know, I had someone experience a pretty terrible medical situation, and you know, the whole time I was like, well, you should probably stick with Blender. You know, if your life is shortened, might as well keep blending, man. Blend your heart out. They ended up surviving. They survived, which I'm like, yo, you blended it. You blended it, man. So we're at the end of this part. We pretty much spent 15 minutes up-resing it. Now we're slapping it with subdivision and hitting it with a set smooth. And this is basically our result so far. So we could be really particular about what we're looking at with our geometry. You know, we could also reinforce our bottoms, because they're just not reinforced. We can't just be letting our bottoms run away from us like they are. But, you know, 15 minutes, and we just saved a lot on our car insurance. And if you're not driving a car, even better. You don't need insurance, and you don't need a car. However, this area is highly, highly questionable. You know, this is just not going to do. You know, we could just gloss over that and pretend it didn't happen, but it happened, and I don't like it. So I'm just going to select these edges. I tried to dissolve, but we're going to need to be a little more majestic than that. You know, I run into these blend issues, and I don't even care, you know, because I got Feist in my ear. Singing her sad songs, you guys. I'm telling you, the saddest alternative, that's always been me. Like, I remember I used to go to people's houses to listen to CDs because I didn't have a computer. It's like, yo, man, you gotta let me listen to this CD. So this area is definitely going to be harder than we think it is. You know, we think we could just get in there and hit it like that. Maybe not. You know, we have a little bit of subdivision shrinkage happening because of what's going on with our topology. So if we pull back, we can actually think about how we want to deal with this. So I'm thinking that first, a bit of simplification can help us out with this side. You know, we probably don't need that loop. That loop is a little bit excessive, but we probably do need it just because we want to like crease the side. But we see that it's just so sparse, and that is something that we just gotta fix it. We gotta fix it. You know, sometimes you do that. Sometimes you just make a sparse area. So me and my limited knowledge, my first thought is I'm going to split it off, apply level of subdivision, and we'll delete the end because this part's been compromised. Let's press Alt X, bisect mod, let's grab this side, bring it up until it's about here, and let's think about reassimilating this into the board. And it might be easier said than done. You know, if we take this in local mode, we are local just for thinking that we want to merge all of this extra geometry on flatties. Get out of here. Get out of here. You know, I'm not that type of guy. Yeah, I mean, I am merciless on flatties. I've just realized in my art, I used to spend so much time on flatties, and it's just unnecessary. So let's get rid of subdivision. And we have a couple of routes we can go for doing this, but I'm going to go at this the worst route. Let's Shift D duplicate this. We'll hide a piece, and I'm just going to delete this face. We're going to go all the way up here, and you might be watching this thinking, haha, MX made a mistake, but you know, every mistake is a learning opportunity is how I see it. So this video does make it to the tubes. Hopefully this educates you guys on how I would approach such a problem, because you on this problem. But I'm thinking that we can actually just get very linear with this. We'll place a loop here, which means we can actually delete all of this, and that part's going to be mysterious. This part would be easier to solve. You know, we don't even have enough geometry for this. You know, we're just really getting kind of random with subdivision, but you know me, if you're watching my channel, you're curious on what I'm going to push subdivision to be. I mean, we could have accepted the previous part, but I'm telling you, if you're going to cut corners that don't matter. You know, cut corners because you're like trying to get out the door, or your client's breathing down your neck, or, you know, a good reason. But don't just cut a corner because, you know, because you can. Because I'm going to notice it, and I'm going to ask you about it and be like, hey man, was your house on fire? Is that why this corner was cut? Who died? You know, did you kill him? You know, these are the type of questions I would be asking. So this might be a mistake, but I bet we can make it work out. Just get all crazy with our mesh. Really just kind of operating on faith here, on some Holy Bible stuff right now. I mean, not saying I'm getting religious, but if anything, I'm losing my religion like REM. Let's slide this over. Also, I love Losing My Religion by REM. REM is just one of those greats. Can't be dissing on REM around me. Start talking about Iris and Imitation of Life, especially. Imitation of Life had the craziest music video. If you've never seen it, you should go watch REM's Imitation of Life music video. Like, the special effects in it were just crazy. Like, I wish I could go in the time machine and work in the 90s or the 80s. I would stop the video game crash. We always talk about it. It's like, man, we could just stop that video game crash in the 80s, just stop Atari from giving licenses to dog food companies. Just be like, hey man, that's going to result in a very, very long day for shareholders if you do that, you know. I mean, Not to say Nintendo shouldn't have came in and saved everyone's bacon in the 80s, but we could have stopped E.T. from being buried. Just kidding. E.T. would have still come out and still would have had to have been buried, but it's been random. You know, we lost so much geometry that we're just literally rebuilding it all. But I feel like we are almost successfully about to survive this whole ordeal. And that is a milestone because, you know, in a way I kind of free modeled all of this stuff and managed to up-res it. You know, when I say up-res, I'm talking about the process of adding an additional level to something similar to subdivision. But yeah, we refer to it as up-resing because, you know, in the world of mesh modeling, the only way to get something to look right is more geometry. You got to give it more geometry. I mean, these aren't my rules. If there's a way to not do that, then, you know, let me know. I'm all ears. But in my line of, I mean, in my experience, I have found that 9 times out of 10, more geo, and you can actually survive the day. Otherwise, you run the risk of not surviving the day and it going unto the night and unto the next day and just becoming an eternal ordeal. So sometimes just simplicity is the true baconator. So now that we've up-res this and we no longer have any holes except for this one hole, so I guess we must continue talking. Just kidding, we are done. So now that this has been converted, we're now at 36 minutes, which means that we actually lost a little bit of time when we poorly planned on this. And so let's shift in, make sure our geometry is facing the right direction, no subdivision edit mode, and we're back to our initial conundrum, which was how do we solve this particular area? Because it is a mess. And that was precisely why we up-resed it, was to get this area to work out better. So let us turn off auto smooth, and we see that it definitely is surviving better, but it's not surviving just as good as I wish it would. So let's try giving this an offset point. Let's bring a point over here. Let's bring a loop over here. Did it merge? Yes. Let's add another one, and we see that this one stops early. So this one piece, what a doozy. What a doozy, you guys. And also, we have some terror geometry happening, and we just want to not have that. You know, subdivision as our auditor will give us a little bit of truth. Watch, we're going to be modeling this piece until the 45th minute. But I'm pretty sure once we're done with it, the rest of this will fall into place. However, saying that might jinx us to another unknown hell that awaits us. So I'm just looking at some of these loops and their closeness to each other, just pondering their existence, because we could actually get rid of some things And what do we want to do for this side? You know, because we're short one loop that actually is not connected, so we could just bring it down to the correct location. Let's also remove any doubles just to make sure that nothing weird is happening. And it's so easy to get over obsessed with an area like this. You know, I should have judged it better in my concept, or in the concept that I'm basing this from. Alright, let's go back a few steps. I actually want to bring back the loop that we got rid of, this one. And we'll just grab this loop. We're just going to bring it over the hard way. I know, totally regrettable. We're really pushing the limits of what we're able to do with our subdivision. I mean, I almost feel like this loop doesn't need to exist because it's just extra. And that actually is more acceptable now that we've kind of cleaned it up a little bit, but we lost this plane that I created, and I really liked it. If we put another one, we actually get it back, but I'm just debating on if it's worth it or not. In fact, we could also begin dealing with this a little bit. For example, something like that. And I think that we should walk away from this because we have lost an abhorrent amount of time on this one area. But sometimes it happens like that. You just get really obsessive with one particular area, even though that area isn't as important as you think it is, especially in the grand scheme of the entire part. But like I said, it's a thing that happens to me with the mesh. Sometimes I will find a part and just get so obsessed with its perfection that I'll just keep doing it over and over in hopes of just understanding it. So that we can leave this demon piece and not have to come back to it in earnest, let's also model this nut, which, you know, story of my life, right? Modeling these dang nuts. Let's just add a new collection. I'm going to start off just pressing D and changing it to 6 segments, and we're just going to draw out a make box in the form of a circle. And looking at the nut in the image, I am going to let's hit it with the old classic. You know, I was about to change up the game, but let's just. But we don't want to play the timeline. We want to press Control-Shift-B, bring it in just slightly, and let's. You know, always got to be weird, me. So we'll bring it in, bevel it, press I, right click, loop tools, circle. And I don't know why I'm receiving so many comments right now. We'll just extract it, being extruded all the way through. Control plus to grow, Control Alt Numpad plus to grow it in, or Control Alt Numpad minus to cut through, which will give us a cut through on the bottom. And just thinking about, you know, how accurate do we have to be with this? You know, I got some screw nuts out there who are very serious about the accuracy of their screws and nuts. And if you call a screw a nut or a nut a screw, you'll get crucified. So far so good. Let us press Control T, Alt J, and that didn't work. So, you know, that little hot tip only can be used so far. Alternatively, you must get in and actually deal with these things manually. So I'm going to, first of all, let's press Shift N, make sure that everything's facing the right way. Then when we bevel, we can actually add one segment. We still have our solid bevel, so it's still a profile of 1. And we just mirror. And just thinking about how we're going to solve this. And as you can see, my solution is whatever, you know. Let's look at this from top view. I feel like that one of these edges doesn't need to exist, or 2 of them. You know, we could just slide this to here, but that one probably needs to exist. This one doesn't actually have to exist. You know, that is the result of us mirroring it to the other side. So let us just get in and clean that up, because we are making a mistake if we break the silhouette of our circle. And we'll just unmark, so that way, or actually let's keep our marking, but we want to mark this area properly. And maybe unmark all this extra stuff going on at the bottom, but we'll just mark it with sharpen just to update it. And we can just select this whole piece, grow it out, unmark it, Shift tilde, mark it, unmark this. You know, we could use crease today. You know, I don't know why crease is always off the table. Oh wait, no, I do remember, because crease is a jerk. Not all the time, but it definitely has its times where it's just not very nice. How many spans do we have around? Let's click on this and turn on statistics, and we see that we have 12 verts around. So if we Shift D duplicate this and then Alt Shift S to place it in the shape of a circle, and we were to extrude down and bring it to something like this, we can just scale this in. Thinking about how we want to construct this, you know, probably want to do it very basic like we're doing, because life is just too short otherwise. Let's press I, and I'm just going to select this piece, Control Alt Numpad plus, and we see if that didn't work out. I'm going to press F9, and we don't have an option to flip it, so let's press Control Alt Numpad minus, and now this has been cut in with a difference boolean. So if we hide this, we see that it didn't work out. We still have faces here. So let's just delete these vertices, Alt H, and in all honesty, I don't know if this mesh operation even went through successfully. I mean, we still see this geometry on the inside, which is just unacceptable. I mean, what do they expect us to do? That? Man, how barbaric of a result we got. You know, Jesus. Just, man. Just terrible. Alright. Let's fill this in. And we can just mirror this across and across while selecting this whole edge for dissolving, and we can mirror that across to the other side. So now we have a shape that looks like that. You know, real basic stuff. Select this, make it make it sharp. We can mark the base sharp as well, but I don't really feel it's necessary. We do want to get one side looking correct. There is something going awry with this geometry. Something here is not true. This face goes way farther than it's supposed to. Let's Shift tilde, and we see that the only hole left is here. That we can just fill. Press I to inset. For now, I mean, we could go back and put threads later if we want to put threads. I mean, I really need to stop doing so many threads. Just kidding. But, you know, by the time I get to thread number 250, I guarantee you I will have figured out the perfect way to do threads. It's just law of probability. Like a dream speed run, except I won't cheat. Let's go ahead and dissolve this. And I'm just looking at it, thinking about what we're looking at there and what we're looking at here, and what we want to do to try to get it, and really, is it worth it? I'm thinking no. So let's press M, and we just want to move this to this collection. I mean, we could also deal with the threads and everything else, but so much time, right? You guys don't want to see that. Let's press Control B, and we're going to just mark that sharp as well. And we could put threads around the ends if we want. You know, we'll just have to see how we feel about it later on. And even though this mesh is subdivided, I am going to Control click bevel, just so we can get a little extra layer of detail happening on it. You know, what can I say? I'm a sucker for beveled surfaces. And we want this screw to be up here and not down there. So the next thing is the controversial move of bringing this up to meet it. So something like that is a little bit better. Let's bring this up, this up. Let's deselect all of this, bring this loop up to meet it, select all of this, deselect, bring this loop up to meet, and that looks a little better to me. I mean, even though I still look at that one corner area and think, man, I could get in there. I should hit that little bastard up. It needs me. But it does not. It's a trick. Alright, so something like that. You know, we'll rotate these just so they're not perfect. And let's just mirror everything across this. I mean everything across this piece. So I just selected both of these, selected this, Alt X, pressed A to add a new mirror, and then we mirrored it. So at least now this piece is looking a little bit closer to completion, even though, you know, we're adding a couple of loops in just to really tighten it up based on what I'm seeing in the image. You know, it could be real tight. That's kind of what I'm interpreting. For the sides, I'm seeing it a little bit looser, but for the most part, this is us creating this general assembly part for, or I'm not going to dare try to say what this shit is. Let's go to layer 3, and I'm going to snap my cursor here. We accidentally unhid what we don't want to see. This is all that's left that we want, so let's Alt H, move this stuff to a collection called Chunk that we'll never talk about again. You know, I always save stuff in case I want to go back and redo it. We could have redone this piece higher with better planning, you know, Batman level planning, but you see me never go on it because, you know, even disaster is an education to me. I'm happy to be educated by beatings. Maybe not on video though. So let's go to collection 2, which should be collection 2, and we want to just make sure we're snapped here. Let's just Shift A, and we'll just add a cylinder, and you know, let's just work with this one. You know, usually I use a 32 round to take it down, but let's just extrude this up. We'll just E and scale it down just so we have something, and then we can just bring this up, and that's actually enough. So from here, to convert this to subdivision, I'm going to just add a bevel and then press 3 to add a subdivision bevel. So now we see that we need to roll it up with Alt. This area that was being beveled above it isn't supposed to bevel like that. If we roll it up with Alt, we see what it's supposed to be. In fact, we could press L and set it to limit method weight, and then when we mark it with sharp, let's try it again. Let's Control Shift click sharpen, and we want to set this to something like, I don't know, 45, and that way we don't actually mark the wrong things by accident. So now let's go under bevel, and if we press 3, we now have a subdivision bevel, which means that we can add subdivision to this and it will just work because it's just set to a profile of 1. Same thing I'm doing in edit mode. You know, no rocket science, just really basic techniques here. So also look at this. You see how terrible this looks? This is what happens when the subdivision modifier isn't the last one on the stack. It'll override your wire display. So me being obsessive, I just can't tolerate that. So let's now deal with this even larger piece around it. So I'm just going to select this piece, select the edge, let us right click, and because we have mesh tools enabled, we can use offset edges to just basically push this edge offset of this one, and let's press P to separate this into its own part, and I'm going to press F and fill it, and let's just press E to extrude, and from here I'm going to press I and then B because we see that it's not this thick all the time. Let's press I, B, and B should have actually made it use the boundary that's over in this area, but instead we get to drag it over on the x-axis and then press X and delete that face, and we basically are able to bring it back in. So now we are pulling it back, allowing us to get this as our result. But let's talk about surviving subdivision, because this mesh isn't going to survive subdivision, and topologically solving it isn't worth it. Look at this surface. The surface is basic as hell. So let's just put a bevel on it, Alt scroll just to have the bevel affect only certain angles of this, just like you see me doing now. We could also mark a few things as sharp. There's something questionable happening with this geometry. Nope, just an interior face. You know, it's a special type of devil, but also a devil we must get past. So this is what we're looking like with our bevel added. If we put a triangulate on it, then, you know, sub D won't just treat our mesh like a, I'm trying to think of a proper analogy, because I feel like all these jokes I make would get me fired from Blizzard, and you know, I'm not trying to do that either. So let's Shift S, origin to selection. Let's Alt X. We'll mirror using a new modifier, which also needs to be before subdivision. And if we come out of local mode, this is what we're looking at so far. If we turn off wireframe, it's not looking that bad. In fact, we don't even have extra edges being put in areas we didn't want it. So we're able to maintain the profile going back, and we can still, you know, make modifications to the shape if we want to adjust what it is. But the next part is actually dealing with this, which, meh. You know, after what we've dealt with on this so far, this thing should be easy to you. I'm going to press, or actually I'm going to press Q and then control click curve extract to extract this into its own piece. So now that we have this piece, I can press I, B. Looks like B's just not going to be there for us today. Pun on B. And let's just bring this face back. We'll select this edge and just move it over. And what I want to do is extrude this back. And this part is one of those hard parts, you know, is what Goofy would say. It's one of those hard parts. So we need to come up with a plan. You know, firstly, let's quarantine. Let's place a loop in the middle. Let's specify our origin between these 2 points, just from between here and here. Origin to selection. So that way when we work, we can mirror this, because I'm pretty sure mirroring's involved. Let's save it, and I'm going to cut in an 8 round circle, and we're going to use view for this in Boxcutter, and we're going to use knife, and we're also not going to use subdivision. So let us just add in a circle, you know, just a simple circle. You know, not all circles have to be 32 round quarter pounders, you know, straight to the head, like a Michelob Ultra, just destroying you, get you trashed before you even make it home. You know, we could beat a Budweiser, use the Budweiser of cylinders, you know, just you know, low alcohol. Doesn't have to be a Bud Ice. So these decisions aren't the best, I know. I mean, when it comes to low geometry, it's just importance to me. Who's more important? Is this one more important? No, this one isn't more important. We reinforced it here. This vert's more important, so we're just sliding it there. That's all there is to it. But now we're in the section of content where, you know, we're definitely talking about subdivision as a means to an end. Not so much subdivision as our general system of control, but more of how it plays into the general workflow of things. So I'm just going to extrude this down. We can just, you know, I'm just going to flatten it about here. We can press F, I. This can be solved like so by selecting these 2 points and pressing J. And this is what we're looking at so far. So somewhere along the way, things fell. Actually, let us make sure normals are facing the right way. Also, is there a face missing? Jeez, vicious. So that's what we're looking at so far. Let's turn off triangulate and look at just the bevel. And the bevel is just way too low. So I thought that control scrolling would have let me raise it, but It did not. It did not. And that's fine. Let's re-enable triangulation, re-enable subdivision. And this is what we're looking at so far. So if we mirror this down below itself, we now have this, but we definitely want to have it here. So, you know, in terms of like hard surface modeling, you know, subdivision is just, I mean, it's just different rules, at least to me. You know, we could be playing by the rules of everything must be subdivision friendly, everything must be subdivision, must go. But really, those are your rules, not mine. And let's look at what we have, and we just need to put an edge across, and we're back being good to go. So I'm pretty sure there's some of these babies in there. You know, we're not going to be dealing with threads on those. We got other areas that actually are more important with their threads. For this one, we don't need it to mirror to the other side because we're going to be doing that ourselves with a different object altogether. Also, let's look at this shape. I'm going to raise the angle, and that will probably get us back in business. But you got to be ever so vigilant whenever it comes to dealing with these meshes in these cases, because if you're going to cut corners, you know, make sure that the corners aren't those that the client is going to notice immediately. Also, this is not a client mesh. This is still us setting up a high. You know, a high that will bake, will save, will do nothing with. You know, we'll do all sorts of stuff. Also, we added 2 mirrors. We didn't need that. We just need 1. And we also need it above the subdivision. Let's also take a look at these. And sure enough, they have the same issues. So this one, spiky corners looking like a Koopa. It's like Koopa screw. So now we have to deal with the bottom and its transition into this piece. So it makes my back hurt. Also, this piece actually segues into this one below. This one's a really interesting piece because we built it all together as one, which is correct. Actually, I see that we are going to need to apply a mirror. We're going to need to apply this mirror. And that means that these pieces can be selected and then extruded. However, where do we want to extrude it from? If we extrude it here, that's actually too thin. So, you know, with this destructive style of modeling, we just want to bring it out like so. Let's Control R, bring in an edge loop, just to harden this area up. You know, we could also give it a loop here to make this work, but I feel like we could turn this into a topological turn and probably get a little bit further. Also, you know, our shape is working. We're working from this side, and really we need to probably rotate this to be like the reference. So I'm going to press period to set my pivot to be the 3D cursor, and we'll just press R90. Let's press R90, and before pressing enter, press minus to make it negative, and that way we can actually get the opposite of that. And there's already a lot of things I see that has to be done. For example, this area just too big. You know, I don't know what this piston's for, but the one that we made was too humongous. It was humongous. So we want to get that dealt with. The other thing is that now that we are looking at it like this, we know what must be done, and it's not going to be pretty or fun. In fact, what must be done? Do we want subdivision to do it? Also came across a 1-star. How'd it go? It happens, Feist. Start singing in French. Gotta move on. I always speak English. Alright, so now that we've done that, we can actually just bevel this to be something more round. So I'm thinking something like that. We could also do it other ways, like let subdivision take it, but because of the bevel hardening everything, we probably just want to deal with it ourselves. We'll press C so we can clamp it at this area, and then in the F9, let's set our shape to 0.5 so that way it's actually rounded. Let's press B and bring this down, and we'll add an additional loop. With this piece, we'll press I, maybe I and then B to keep the bevel respected as well, or the boundary. And we're just jumping to the nearest solution to just end this, because we could leave it as big unspecified end guns. I mean, these are flatties after all, guys, but meh, old habits. Like I said, I switch out my habits. I have all sorts of habits, and they just change. Like in every workflow, I have habits, just fallbacks, where I will just zone out and just get a flashback to a time in the past where I was on the same task, and I will just start hitting it with some books, man. That's all I can say. That's what I call it, the books. You know, just I was told in a manual that you can do this, and that is why I did this. So we're gonna add one knife cut just to help this area out a little bit with an additional loop, because we are going to have to add a circle in this area. I'm going to save my file, because if we convert this into a circle, something terrible is going to happen. I'm not sure why this happens whenever subdivision is present, but I'm definitely aware of it. So let's shift click circle, and we actually have a different circle. This is called circle alt. We have two different circles in HardOps. We have one powered by loop tools that is great in most cases, but in that case, it actually is a curiosity that I'm still in the process of examining deeply. And after I'm done examining it, then I'll report it as an issue, and we can talk about getting it resolved. But usually I like to understand why these things occur, because, you know, in all honesty, we don't even change these things. Sometimes people write us, they're like, hey man, why'd you change this? I'm like, look, if it's not in the release log, we didn't change it at all. These are dangerous accusations, accusing us of changing things that aren't logged. That's definitely not happening. It's always logged when there's a change made. And this circle is actually smaller than the other one. So I bet we can select all of this, press S, Shift, X, and just scale that down. And probably not sacrifice too much. And let's just add a bigger circle next to it. So firstly, we want to protect this boundary loop, but maybe not protect it too much, just that much. We just want to protect it enough, because if we start merging our points to correct them, we don't want to correct them at the very end. Let's undo that, and we want to shift click circle, so we use the correct one, the one that is alternative for the cases where the other circle fails. You know, if you ever wonder why we have multiple versions of the same thing in our tool, it's because failure happens, and I am all about mitigating failure. I want users to be able to continue using these tools no matter what. So one version may go down, but I'm highly doubtful of all versions that we have going down. But it is also possible, you know, I could be proven wrong. So now we have these circles present, meaning that I lost the screws that were here. I'm not sure where they went. I don't know what happened to those screws. Sometimes, or screws. I'm telling you, every time I use explicit terminology, I'm just going to be wrong. Alright, so if you're some sort of mechanical engineer out there eating nuts and bolts for breakfast, lunch, and dinner, you know, good for you. But I'm just a modeler. You show me a picture and you tell me I got to do it, and I will do what the picture says until I get tired of the picture, which usually for me is past the point of interpretation of the picture. You know, I usually get tired of the picture, and these aren't even the same screws. There's different ones here. You know, I'll probably get a Yahoo in the comments telling me about that. But we are so deep into this video, and this piece turned out to be a little bit more complex than I thought, but that be life. Let us continue on. And we're looking at this area, so you know what I see. I just see a cylinder. But a cylinder definitely going to be able to get those details in it, I'll tell you that. Not a 12 rounder that we have in our hand. And we want this to be short of the beginning. And this also tells us that this thing has to come down over on the back. So let's just go ahead and deal with that. We grab these two. And you'll just have to forgive me for the lack of very specific, detailed. What is that, a hex, an Allen? I don't know. Let's alt-click EM macro to push this in. Alright, and so that's not looking too bad. Let's set our origin over to this face. Just Shift S, origin is selected. And what I see with this is an extrusion out, an extrusion, extrusion, extrude, scale, G, Y, and something like. This thing has so many different types of screws in it. You would need like a toolbox to take it apart. Maybe something like that. Let's press Q and add a bevel with 3. So now we get something like that. And we can actually bring this up just a little bit to give it some offset. But we also want to raise our angle so we don't bevel the wrong edges. And this means now that we can subdivide it and it will come out looking classy. So let us turn off subdivision and really analyze what we have going on at the ends over here. Let's press Q, sharpen, and we'll mark this as sharp 2. Q, bevel, L to set our limit method to weight. So we're using weight to determine which of these edges receives a bevel, which sometimes can be a little bit easier. Like, I have a really weird relationship when it comes to these tools. Like, I use it the way they say in the manual. Plus, I extrapolate using context clues, things that I assume they mean in the manual, but probably either should explicitly say not to do, or it's fair game. Just so let's apply subdivision, and I'm going to just press Q and shift click circle to bring ourselves a circle. We could just press E and just extrude this in. Oh my god, all of our edges. This is a disaster, as AR would say. We'll apply our subdivision, keeping our bevel, and that will allow us to at least look at this as our result. So we definitely don't want to be looking at this stuff in edit mode, never. And we probably want to quarantine what we're about to be doing. So let us just bring in our circle, and I like how this piece sticks out. You know, we could just do the same thing, and of course I am going to simplify and use the same screws. Otherwise this tutorial will be half about screws and half about the actual part that is at hand. we do want to deselect and then make sure that we mark only the boundaries so that we don't get anything crazy happening. And I'm gonna have to press R 4 or 5, apply the rotation, mirror it, place the mirror up here, R 4 or 5 minus to place it back where it was, and we can at least continue on with our day. So, you know, I'm not gonna do that twice. I'm not that type of animal. So we want to get rid of the second mirror, and let's mirror across this because we still have our origin in the correct place and we're just dealing with object rotation. We can just duplicate this over, and we might be able to finish this in a timely fashion. You know, I got some cold dinner, so after this I'll eat some cold dinner in front of the TV. You know, real sad picture, but I'm telling you, I'm a sad guy. Life is a sad thing. It's like half tragedy. It's like The Crow. You know, you ever watched The Crow? That's life. We're all Brandon. So the cool thing about where we are right now with this is that by marking it with sharp, we actually are updating our bevel, which increases our subdivision. So we could do the same thing on this end. You know, we just add a loop and then shift click EM macro, which will crash Blender for us. See how good autosave is to us. You know, we didn't have a crash for so long, so it's definitely time for us to test our luck. So here we are back in the game. You know, you only wish Blender just would end us completely. So let's shift click EM macro to push this in, and from here we just sharpen and it's nicely updated. You know, those are some things that happen during commercial jobs all the time, and I'm like, man, I wish I could record this. But you know, client stuff, you can't be recording that. You can't be doing anything funny on client stuff, or else they'll give you your walking papers, tell you they found someone else, someone cheaper. Also, you don't want to be giving the clients any business. You just want to get in, get out, finish the job. It's like Vietnam, except you finish it. So we are going to grab this and bring it back, just because I feel like it looks a little bit better that way. And we're just going to bring back our samey screws, and this area just going to keep testing me, and I will keep correcting it. Let's get rid of some of these extra redundant loops that just that one is actually needed. I'm like, hey, let's get rid of that loop. That loop is super important, but we are making some headway with our piece so far. So let's get out of wireframe because we're not those kind of people. I am going to be one of these type of people though, where I select this, control click curve extract to make it its own piece, and we're just going to bring it out. Let's rotate it, and you know, just really thinking off the top of my head with how to make this piece the easiest way with what I have. And maybe something like that will actually look suitable, even though, you know, I'm not trying to get it precisely like the image. All right, just enough to please the masses. You know, hopefully y'all give me the thumbs up, don't throw me to the lions. So we are just going to move this around till we're about here. And so what about wires? How are we going to deal with wires? Well, you already know what I'm going to do. I'm going to add in a Bezier, but you know, first let's add in a Bezier, but let's make it face us, because you know, I saw that, I was like, wait, aren't we about to do like 3 extra keystrokes? Not needed. Sometimes you can see in advance the keystrokes that are not necessary and save them from yourself. Blender has some steps to mitigate it, but Blender in itself needs like an entire lean program done to completely mitigate some of the extra keystrokes that have come up over the years that have just become a big ponder. But my opinions on Blender are strange. You know, I feel that you know, Blender is definitely great, but you know, people are like, how's it compare against this and this? How's it compare against this and this? You know, the unfortunate answer is it's terrible at most things, but altogether it is a fantastic package. But I feel like modeling is definitely its strongest suite. But that's also, you know, why I recommend looking at those foundation files, because they're the only ones who will show you how this program is intended to be used. I always swore that, like, if I ever caught Ton, I would just try to force a laptop on his lap and be like, yo dog, I just need you to delete a cube. Just delete one cube on this computer. Also, you know, insert a Suzanne, you know, just do something in Blender. I gotta see how you use it, you know. You're like the Blender Lord. Surely you are the greatest user of all time. Like, you could go in there and just make a tree in 2 seconds, just like, I don't know. I just imagine Ton using particles and stopping those particles, turning it into a mesh and scanning in between them and turning them into a tree, just doing crazy stuff, just thinking in terms of Blender, because I mean, Blender's been so limited so long. So all the best solutions involve something very creative being done. You have to be super creative, I feel, to truly enjoy Blender, because otherwise you're going to spend all your time, how do I make it like this program? How do I make it like this program? How do I make it like a CAD shit house? How do I make it like this? You know, like, no. Blender be Blender. You're better off just getting in there. At least that's my approach. Just get in there, you scamp. That's what I tell my cats when they come in from outside, or when I'm sitting them outside. I'm like, get out there, you little scamp. So I'm telling you guys, you little scamps, just get in there. You know, also read the manual though. You know, if you're gonna complain about Blender, complain about the manual. I mean, don't complain about the manual, but, you know, read the manual, try to learn from the manual, and if you don't learn anything, or you fail to get anywhere with it, or you find that the page is just vague and tells you nothing, then yeah, complain about the manual. But my dream is to work on Blender's manual, because I will write some strange entries. I mean, not anything about like metaphysics or politics or anything like that, but I would just talk about alternative uses of these modifiers, you know, like, and I would definitely express about the out-of-box thinking aspect of Blender, because I feel like it's really missed on new users. And, you know, everybody's like, you got to show me how you do this and how you do that. And really, you know, you got to get in there. There's a new way to be discovered. And, you know, me showing you almost spoils the surprise. So I don't even want to do users' requests, because I feel like I'm taking away the joy of your accomplishment. You know, that joy of doing it 1,000 times over and over and actually learning the lesson. Because there's a lesson to be learned. I probably sound like a sadist dad or something, but I'm telling you, only pain will learn you. You know, if you think, hey, I'm gonna just download me some Blender, grab some HardOps, and I'm just gonna be a 3D master, it's not gonna work out for you. It's just not. You know, these tools, I feel there's a curse where, you know, if you didn't buy it, it's worthless. It is completely worthless. You're not gonna understand the why. You're just not. You know, because it comes with experience. You gotta have done it enough to understand why it's painful, and why, you know, doing it 1,000,001 times is just one more time more than you want to do it. I mean, that's just me. Sometimes I will just get so tired of something that I just can't do it anymore. Actually, I feel that way about J. I love J, but recently I've decided that something must be done about J. We must rapid J, because I'm pressing so much J that it's J. And it shouldn't be that way. We're pressing so much J, guys. Shout out to the J's out there. J gang, you know, J420, J429, J96, J007, J-Mo, Puerto Rican J, you know, all the J's out there. Shout out to the J's. Also, I'm a J, but no one calls me J as an adult. So we're just dealing with this piece, and I don't know what this piece is actually. You know, full disclosure, I do not know what this piece is. Like, what is this shape? I just don't know. I've been looking at it and modeling it, and that's what'll happen. Like, if I don't understand a shape, I will just keep modeling and shaping things around until it just looks closer and closer. And more often than not, it is truly a waste of time. In fact, what we're doing down here, waste of time. You know, I'm not even sure what shape this part is. So I'm going to apply to mirror, apply one level subdivision, and let's also put the bisect mod back on it, remove some of these redundant mods, and put a layer of subdivision on it. We'll just give this a soft subdivision. And I don't know why I was so obsessed with this piece for a moment. It's silly. Like I said, it's silly every time. Don't get obsessed with these dang parts, y'all. We're going to basically make this a higher resolution cylinder by applying a level of subdivision after creasing it, basically an up-res. And let's just turn this into some threads. You know, we're gonna have to do some threads today. So we might as well thread it up with this thing. Jeez, got a lot of threads in here. You know, I'm gonna go with about that many. You know, we're always just eyeballing, aren't we? Let's select this piece, press V. Where was I? Oh yeah, I shouted out the J's already. You know, shout out to the J gang. All 420 of you. Let's select the right edge, which I actually want to select the edge on the opposite side. I'm trying to get my threads right. People keep telling me I'm making left-handed threads, and I'm not even trying to make inaccurate threads. However, I am a serious lefty. You know, if you're right-handed, you know, I automatically don't like you. Unfortunately, you know, just you right-handed people, you run around, think you're so self-righteous with your right-handed writing and stuff like that, and all your right-handed video games and all your games of the past that don't have southpaw configuration. You know, get out of here. Just kidding. But I used to think that it would be cool to make a very southpaw game where the controls are defaulted southpaw and everything, and just everyone who played it would be forced to be southpaw. But it almost isn't even worth the pain, is it? You know, have a Kotaku article written about me being ableist or whatever nonsense they'll peddle about me. So I'm going to press E, Alt S to just push this out. And if we look at these threads, I tell you, all these threads just look the same to me. All this just looks the same to me. Let's try pushing it out again. You know, maybe a little more subtle. We're a little heavy there. So the first loop is always fine. The second loop requires a terminator at both of these points. And then we can actually give it a second loop without it getting out of control. So something like that, and then we can just form our connections with the relevant areas. Also, let us slide this back. We'll slide this one to and fro just to give it a nice starter point. And let's slide this all the way here to terminate, and that'll do. You know, if you're looking at my threads too close, you'll definitely notice my mistakes. But threads be threads. And like I said, by the time I get to my 300 set of threads, I'll either be super fast at the current way that I do it, or I'll have figured out a different way to approach threading altogether. But guarantee you one of them, you know, it's just practice. You know, if you're out there doing the threads the same way, just a little practice, you'll get somewhere. And I feel like we need one more loop here, and maybe here as well. You know, I know, a little extra. And I was about to put a face on the other side, but it's not needed. We do want to auto smooth this, so that way we get something looking nice. Alright, this is one of those 1 stars. Where's these songs coming from? I could have sworn I banished that song to the shadow realm. Alright, so we're still working. And pretty much every video I record, I'm like listening to music instead of my voice. You know, you probably think I like to listen to myself talk and that's why I do all these videos, but really, it isn't. I prefer time lapses. That way I can watch my videos all the time because I love time lapses. I get in there, I just start jamming, you guys. I'm lost to reality. You know, whatever reality this is, it's not my reality whenever I'm in the zone with music. And how obsessive do we want to be with this? You know, I feel like I'm being really obsessive with that piece, and I don't even know what it's shaped like. I'll probably be researching it after the video. Let's select this and shift click to extract this out into its own piece. We'll apply the mirror, we'll apply solidify, and this will allow us to extract this, extrude this up. Maybe go for something like that. And we can just mirror it below as well. Let's mirror over to the other side as well. And let's select this and unmark. Maybe something like that, just to wrap it up. However, you know, I just do not like this part. In fact, I look at the one that we are presented with, and this thing looks much smaller, much thinner. Something like that. Which means that this has to also be smaller. And I bet it has to be a lot smaller by the time we get to the other layer. So let's just control P and parent this to this object, so it's like a baby's rattle. We can just move this to layer 1. What a terrible piece. But it probably isn't. I just need to better understand what shape it actually is, because it's just so hard to deal with undefined shapes when you don't know what shape it is. I mean, just in my mind, I just see like a infinity symbol. I'm like, what shape is that? This just RY90, and just like that, we have completed our pump. However, this piece feels so humongous, and it's probably because we made this pole so big, which we could scale that down. And this piece is just humongous, so looking at our reference and just making scale adjustments to get it to fit. And we could also make it shorter, but we'll just pretend that this is a fully elongated piece. So with that, we can press Alt-V and turn on our wireframe. We can also turn off the grid, the floor, you know, turn off 3D cursor, extras, and just start looking at this as a topological masterpiece and final result. So with that, we have now modeled our second piston. I may be coming back to revisit this piece in the future, but at least for also this piece, look how excessive this is. I'm going to go and adjust curve, and we are just going to control roll in order to reduce the amount of edges. We're also going to try, let's see, I thought we could reduce the amount of segments in it, but it looks like we have to go to a different option for that. But yeah, that piece was just looking so dense compared to everything else, you know, so insignificant in the grand scheme of things. But just like that, we have now modeled our second piston. So I'll wrap this video for now to avoid embarrassing myself, but thank you of course for watching.